Listen, I'm wearing this shirt for a reason, right? I can't forget my roots and where I come from as a defensive back, right? With that being said, you know, this one position group is the best group of players any one league in Europe has ever seen, right?
We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking out. Hit street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to this episode of Base Coverage presented to you by, of course, our partners over at Knoah Teamwear. I'm your host, Jamal Clay. Today, I got a fun one for you. I'm excited about this one, the one we're going to talk about in returns of, I think there's one position group that is the best group of talent one league in Europe has ever seen, right? I'm wearing this shirt for a reason because I can't forget my roots coming up as a defensive player. But we're going to dive into this one position group and go over, some of the guys that a lot of ELF media, a lot of the new people watching league are going to be introduced to. So I'm gonna dive into that a little bit with a couple topics I have. But man, the wide receivers this year in ELF 23 are ridiculous, from imports to domestic, all across the board. This is the best group of guys one league in Europe has definitely ever seen. I mean, I'm talking about, we got 9 guys returning that have been named ELF All-Stars between the 2 seasons in the ELF. We got 9 guys returning just this year alone, right? We have 3 guys from last season who had 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns, right? We probably got the top American import receiver that played in Italy last year, along with the top wide receiver American import that played in the GFL last year. All right. We have one dude who has 51 career touchdowns and almost 3,600, and has 3,600 plus career yards receiving. And I can't forget, we have a triple crown winner, right? All those guys packed up in the blender, and ELF has given it to us in year 1. In year 3 of the ELF, along with obviously the new teams and stuff. So I'm excited to dive into that a little bit. Before we do that, here's a quick word from our partners over at Knoah Teamwear. Welcome back. As I mentioned before, I'm wearing the shirt for a reason, to represent my defensive roots as I'm diving into the receivers a little bit. However, you could get this shirt at Knoah Teamwear. Shout out to AJ Wentland. This is his design as we're representing the Land Sharks on defense. So, all right. As I mentioned before, the wide receivers are great this year in the ELF in terms of talent-wise, and it's a deep class. It's a really, really deep class. If there was ever a league where you had to question who the best receiver is, it's going to be this season. It's going to be season 3 in the ELF, and there's going to be a lot of a lot of the love to be spread around, especially with a lot of teams having American wide receivers, and a lot of good quarterbacks this year too. So a couple things I want to discuss. First topic: these 3 guys, I look at them as true number 1 receivers, true X receivers, guys that are going to be, that dude for their team. And there's a lot of guys out there, but these guys rise to the top, or first on my list. So the first one, we got Terrian Johnson, played for the Rams last year, only halfway through the season, almost had about 700 receiving yards, was part of the turnaround where, they beat Barcelona. They took the Hamburg Sea Devils to overtime, and this guy was unguardable. And now he signed with Cologne for this upcoming season. He's a true number 1 who I look at as going to be, someone that's going to be a nightmare for a lot of DBs, or a lot of the coordinators. The other one, Malik Stanley, someone else that's returning to the league, played for the Russell Panthers last year. He was a 1,000-yard receiver. This guy, you could play him at the X, you could play him in the slot. Either way, he always attracted the top defensive matchup, and he won a lot of those battles. And then the number 3 guy is Markel Castle. Now, this dude played in Italy last year, signed with the Munich Ravens this year, and this guy is definitely a true number 1. I wish I was a fly on the wall, for those practices where it's going to be him and Darius Robinson during one-on-ones, iron sharpen iron. That's a great grab by the Ravens to be able to pull Markel Castle after not re-signing with the Seamen. those three guys I look at as like my true number one receivers and probably some of the top dogs heading into year three in the ELF. Next thing I want to talk about, um, potentially some of the best overall group of receivers on the team, and not necessarily including the imports. But when I think about this topic, I think about three teams. I think about the Raiders, the Raiders of Tyrol, right? You bring in uh you bring in Adrian Platzgummer, you got Marco Schneider, you got Chris Hahn alone, and then you bring in somebody like a Jarvis McClam to join that bunch of guys. I think even without Jarvis, that's a group, that's a good core group right there, and they've been together for a while. So that's one team I look at that has a good group of receivers that necessarily didn't need an import but could be better. Obviously signing Jarvis. Prague. Prague got some dudes, and don't sleep on Prague. Prague got some guys, and I'm probably about to botch some of these names, but I'm gonna try it. So we got Josip Yanoda, obviously, one of their first signings and one of the top dudes in the league. We got Marcus Tucci. That's 51 career touchdowns, 3,600 plus career receiving yards. Yeah, this dude's getting the rock. Lucas Cadlick, guy who's very gifted. Still needs some, development, but his potential is through the roof. And I like his size too. And not to mention, you're adding our boy Rico, who played for the Roosters last year, along with Victor Wharton to the bunch. I can already see, it's going to be a team that, you can't double anybody, so you gotta have to have guys to match up. Could cause problems for a couple teams just because they got so many weapons, but Prague has a really, really good group of receivers. And then lastly, I mean, you can't forget about the champs, right? All right. And if you did, let me remind you, the Vienna Vikings. Not only is Jordan Boer returning back, but Weston Carr, remember him? He got hurt preseason, didn't really play much this past year, had to re-sign another wide receiver right before that Raiders game week 1. And then Florian Beerbaumer, right? Another one who got off to a hot start in year 2, but injuries unfortunately ended his season short. He's returning back. So don't forget about Vienna, because they got dudes that didn't even play last year that are still going to be some of the top guys heading into year 3. So when I think about potential teams that have a good group of receivers, I think about those 3 teams at the top so far. All right. And if you did, let me remind you, the Vienna Vikings. Not only is Jordan Boer returning back, but Weston Carr, remember him? He got hurt preseason, didn't really play much this past year, had to re-sign another wide receiver right before that Raiders game week 1. And then Florian Beerbaumer, right? Another one who got off to a hot start in year 2, but injuries unfortunately ended his season short. He's returning back. So don't forget about Vienna, because they got dudes that didn't even play last year that are still going to be some of the top guys heading into year 3. So when I think about potential teams that have a good group of receivers, I think about those 3 teams at the top so far. All right, this is a good one. All right, potential Triple Crown winners. This one's not extensive here. You really gotta be in an offense that you're gonna get that many touches. You're gonna get those many opportunities. Obviously, nobody knew much about Kyle Sweet last season, but his the relationship him and Zach have on the field, the offensive schemes Coach Weininger was able to draw up. He was able to get this guy open. He was able to win those matchups. He was able to, score, make big plays, and shout out to him. Will we see one this year? I don't know, but if we are going to see one, I have 3 guys potentially who could be Triple Crown winners. First one, Austin Duke, wide receiver for the Barcelona Dragons. Him and Connor are already working out down in Florida, building that chemistry, building that relationship. I think that's, depending on the offense they're going to run, I think that's a guy that could see a lot of touches in this offense. Next, Josip Yanoda, another one. We just mentioned him with Prague. This guy is Mr. Reliable. One of Shaz's favorite, Shaz Mumphrey, quarterback for Prague, one of his favorite targets. I think, with the threat of, Vic, and obviously you got Suchi, who's his stats with 51 touchdowns, 3,600 career receiving yards. People might forget about Yanoda, but I don't think I don't think he's someone that you should not game plan for. Otherwise, he's going to hit you and he's going to burn you as well. So that's another one. And then the number one guy who I think has an opportunity to win the Triple Crown in year 3, Gene Constant, right? First season with Barcelona, him and Zach, 1,000-yard receiver, one of the top receivers in the league. Goes to Hamburg year 2, falls off just a little bit, still puts up big numbers. And now he's going to Milan to play with a quarterback like Luke Zaraka, right? Every receiver Luke has had the past couple of years has been one of the top receivers in Italy. You know, we talk about Markel Castle, we talk about Xavier Mitchell, right? Gene's not going to be any different. Gene's a little different in size, right? Obviously a little shorter, a little bit more shifty, a little more of a speed guy. But Gene's gonna get his touches, and Gene's gonna get opportunities to, you know, get back to year 1 Gene when he was with Barcelona versus year 2 Gene when he was with the Sea Devils. Both years he balled, but you know now he's with a quarterback that's gonna feed him the rock, like similar to what happened in year 1 with the Dragons. So I think Gene Constant is probably who I think could be the number one person who could be on the verge of a triple threat if there was one in year 3. All right. Lastly, before we end this thing, my under the radar guys. All right. Some guys you should definitely keep your eye on. All right. First of all, Brenton Martin, import wide receiver for the Russell Panthers. Watch this guy's film. This guy is a dog. Like this guy goes up and gets it over your head, wins every jump ball I've seen on film. This guy is going to definitely make a name for himself early. So Brenton Martin, wide receiver for Russell Panthers. Next, Remy Bertolini. Welcome back, man. You know, we seen this guy when he was with Barcelona year 1, ELF All-Star, didn't return year 2, and now he's returning back in year 3 for Paris. Bill already has a relationship with Zach at quarterback. That's someone that could remake a name for himself heading into year 3. All right. Next one. Yannick Meyer, right? This guy played for the Raiders last year. Again, we mentioned it before, a little bit of a crowded receiving room, didn't really get the touches he was hoping for. Now he's moving over to Stuttgart Surge, right? Where he's going to be teaming up with Riley Hennessy and Jordan Newman in that offense, trying to make a name for himself, separating a little bit from the Raiders, right? I think that's someone who could be under a radar that, again, can make a name for himself early too. Max Zimmerman, right? We think about the Berlin Thunder, new offensive coordinator, right? You already have Robin Vilcek, and you already have Aaron Jackson, right? Max Zimmerman is someone that could see a lot of touches as well, especially, you know, being a little bit of an under the radar guy in that offense. So Max Zimmerman, Berlin Thunder. Lastly, don't forget this guy's potentially the fastest guy in the league. Heading into year 3, right? We were big on ELF Media was big on Jalen Conwell in terms of his speed when he signed with the Rams in year 2. Never really saw him play at that speed. This guy, former track star, plays that fast, and he's a hell of a grab for the Anthroners. And I'm talking about Jay Griffin, being able to team him up with Gabriel Cunningham. That's already a fast offense to begin with, and you still got Benjamin Plu on the outside too. Jay Griffin is a speedster, and we're gonna see his speed early, heading in as we watch him this year in year 3. So as I mentioned before, this receiving group in the whole league, imports, American, domestic, the best group of receivers any league in Europe has ever seen, and I'm excited to watch it. Right now, with that being said, I'm keeping my eye on our DBs, right? You know, we got a lot of talent this year, but you know, we can still shut these dudes down. So we'll see how everything pans out. But hey, thank you guys for tuning in. You know, don't forget to, you know, like this video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. Let's talk as we head into season 3, June 3rd of the ELF. We got more content coming along the way. But again, as I always say, this won't be the last time we chop it up.
Nobody. Hard work, they don't know about it. Hard work, they don't know about it. Hard work, they don't know about it. Animal.